Hey there, Heather. Hello there. It's Jeff Cutter. Welcome me to yet another Degrassi video. I know I haven't really done Degrassi stuff for a while, and I'm almost fresh out of ideas. So anyway, there was this one person by the name of Capital Study on Degrassi Reddit who wrote a post about the worst send-offs in Degrassi history. Like, you know, who deserved the worst send-offs. And then, of course, I expanded it into a poll and all that. The fact of the matter was that there were some good characters that were talked about with send-offs and how bad they are. Now, a send-off is different than a black hole thing within the Degrassi universe. A send-off is at least the person, they have reason to get rid of that person and don't just black hole them and just not talk about them or put them in a bad fate. We at least see them one last time for some reasons and all that. So yeah, so I came up with 20 people and then I did a poll and all that. What I did for the poll, and you'll see the results, of course, at the end of the video, was that using poll maker, because Reddit polls you can't really make them if you're on the web. And I always do my Degrassi stuff via my laptop. So what ends up happening is I decided to go into poll maker and do the stuff like that and then just bypass it and then just give the links to vote and all that. So anyhow, we got to 20. What I did was I did preliminary polls of the Degrassi high/junior high era, the Degrassi Next Gen era pre-season 7, and the Degrassi and the Degrassi season 7 plus era for send-offs. I came up with 20. What I did was the top 2 in each of the 3 polls would go into the polls from 1 to 6 and 7 to 12 and all that. That's what I did. Went old school. All right, and of course, 13 to 20 is my rankings, so my contributions. All right, so here are the list. Okay, first at number 20, and let's see if I did that. Yep, do the fingers. First at number 20 is KC from season 11 or 12. I can't remember. Casey was introduced in season 8 as the brooding bad boy who was basically there to recreate season 1's Next Generation's like Sean. But Casey was a troubled person, but he had a troubled life because he had to be living in a group home because both his parents were in prison, especially his dad. So his mom got out, and his mom actually decided to connect with Casey, and Casey agrees. He lives with her, and of course, Casey is upset over the fact that Jenna told about her pregnancy on Teen Star, embarrassing Casey in front of his mom. However, Casey and his mom decided to try to help Jenna out with the baby and all that. And Casey moves in with Jenna so he can be supportive, but that doesn't work out well. Unfortunately, Casey's dad leaves prison and tries to find Casey and his mom, so they have to move to Vancouver. And Casey gets a send off and all that. But I mean, to take care of him and send him off to Vancouver, well, there could have been other storylines just reeked of desperation. At number 19 on the list is Hazel. Now, Hazel wasn't much of a character in the Next Generation era, I'll admit. She did have one strong storyline, and that was the episode Can't Believe This Hype in season 2, which is very underrated. I did a Degrassi unpopular opinion about the fact that Can't Believe the Hype is one of the most underrated episodes ever. Because that's the episode in which Hazel tries to hide her Somalian heritage and pretends to be Jamaican, but then this girl named Fariza basically outs her. And Hazel has some problems. But then Hazel is compassionate towards Fariza and decides to tell everyone about her Somalian heritage. People ask her questions, but she handles them well and gets praised for it. Of course, this episode happened, what was it? Like 15 months after 9/11 happened in Canada. Of course, remember, Canada gets the episodes first instead of the States. So Canada got it 15 months after 9/11 happened. And, they were discussing on hate and all that. Kendra made some points. Toby made some points. Everyone made points about, a discussion on hate. And, that's what people should be doing nowadays. Hazel was just basically the sidekick to Paige and all that. Try tried to get a relationship with Jimmy, but unfortunately that did not work out so well. And Hazel was just basically thrown to the sidelines, like almost every character of color, which is pathetic. Number 18 on the list is Joey. Well, 17 and 18 are technically the same. So 17 and 18 is Caitlin and Joey. You can kind of say who's number 17, who's number 18. But anyway, Caitlin and Joey both kind of went out at the same time. They were part of the Degrassi High era. Joey was this brash guy that always dated Caitlin. It was basically an on again, off again relationship. Caitlin was this well-minded, I'd say environmentalist, and basically like, how do they say it? A, a precocious one, I guess you can call it. Caitlin was basically what Emma became in Next Gen. She would try to be the voice of reason, but behind it all, she had problems. So Joey and Caitlin surprisingly made more appearances in Next Gen than you think. Joey was just basically a used car salesman with a dead wife and a child. And then in season 2, he picked up Craig because, Craig was suffering at the hands of his father and all that, and took Craig in. And then Craig's dad tries to take him back, but then his anger gets the best of him and he dies in a car accident. We don't know if his anger caused the car accident or basically someone slammed into him. But the fact of the matter is now Joey takes care of Craig and all that. Sometimes Craig is very unappreciative of what Joey is sacrificing for him and all that. Caitlin was seen in a few episodes and then left for Africa and all that. She was trying to get a relationship with Joey in season 3, but Sydney wasn't having none of it. But then Caitlin comes back in season 4 around the same time as Joey's about to sell his house. And unfortunately, that plot line was secondary in Time Stand Still. I mean, it would be a good plot on its own if Time Stand Still didn't just freaking overshadow it. The fact of the matter was that, Caitlin wanted to be closer to Joey and saved Joey's house and all that. So we thought it would be a big relationship, but then things soured between the two of them. Joey went off to Alberta and Caitlin was just trying to steal Ellie's boyfriend. So yeah, that was not good for the OGs. Number 16 on the list is Tessa. Speaking of Degrassi High and all that, Tessa got a bad send off too. Tessa was in the Schools Out movie, basically wanting to be with Joey and all that. After Joey and Caitlin broke up again, but Caitlin decided to give Joey another chance, and Joey, instead of telling Caitlin that he was with Tessa, decides to keep both girls at the same time, thinking he can get away with it. Well, he impregnates Tessa, but for some dumb reason, Tessa doesn't really tell Joey about it. She gives subtle hints to what happened, but she aborts the baby. And I think she should have told Joey because Joey would have stepped up to the plate in my mind. But the fact of the matter is he didn't, and Joey, I guess, maybe have known, maybe not have known, we don't know. But yeah, but what I heard was that Tessa was not just a one-off character. I thought Tessa was one-off, but no. She was actually in Degrassi Junior High, and she inadvertently started the fire that engulfed the junior high. She and Scooter were playing tag and all that. And then they did some stupid moves and all that with keeping doors shut. And then basically there was a fire. It didn't help matters that the cheery Degrassi Junior High theme was played during the fire. But yeah, Tessa deserved better. Joey did mention her name in season 4 when Craig wants to leave to go to school even though he's sick. And Joey's upset that he was trying to talk to Sydney about the house. I better not see Tessa Campanelli on my front steps. That's weird. Number 15 on the list. Did that wrong? Number 15 is my main man Raditch getting a bad send off. I mean, we all know about Raditch and what happened in season 4 and how he was declining in a sense. From Next Gen season 1 to 4, you can see that he's starting to get jaded. He's not caring about the students. He gets into petty arguments with Emma. Although it must be said that Emma herself in Fight for Your Right was a prick too. Both sides were wrong. Nobody came out on top. Emma kind of went out on top because she exposed Raditch for who he was. and Radich was trying to control the school again. Of course, Radich was not too appreciative of Emma butting in to the whole Rick situation in season 4, warning her to stay out of it. It's not one of your stupid causes. Are you fucking nuts, Radich? It is a stupid cause. But the fact of the matter is that in a stupidly placed deleted scene of all things, why couldn't CTV/Nickelodeon put the scene in that Marco and Alex tried to talk to Radich? All he said is his hands were tied because, Terry was at a private school, and the fact that there was no mention of any criminal charges. I understand that, but it just basically means that he's ducking them, or he should have been more clear. Unfortunately, though, he gets himself into a worse situation when Rick tries to talk to him about Jimmy. Rick does not say the right things. Let me be clear about that. If Rick was more clear about what Jimmy did and said it easily to Raj, who's a concrete thinker, Raj would have taken Rick a lot more seriously. And, well, at worst, he would have just said, I need proof. Give me proof. Like, Rick needs proof and all that. I think if Rick had the proof, well, of course, later he would with the painted feathers, obviously, as Raj saw it on the TV, on the computer screen. But the fact of the matter is that, he just tells Rick, come back to me if something serious happens, and basically pisses off the entire fan base. Like, I understand Raj's point of view. Of course, Raj has to deal with damage control after the shooting and all that. Snake getting on his ass twice. Once in a deleted scene, once in the media room that we saw. So Raj now has to try to fix the school. But instead of actively trying to find out about the painted feathers and the situation at hand and calming the students down, what does he do? He just wants a sunny musical to prove how good Degrassi is. Because, yeah, Degrassi is on the 6 o'clock news for all the wrong reasons. But he's putting his school's interest in front of the students' interest. Of course, the Radishes song happens. He flips out by giving Liberty and JT detention. And then the next episode, Bark in the Moon, he's gone. He easily could have been just shooed off screen. But they decided to give the OG his flowers, if you will. They do give Raj a scene in which he talks about how all good things come to an end. Obviously, Raj didn't want to tell about this. It could have been the perfect time for Raj to apologize to the school for his actions, but he doesn't. He's basically off after Bark of the Moon, and Dan Woods in real life was doing chop cut rebound in Los Angeles, and flying to Toronto and back was not easy. So he just basically asked to be off. All right, number 14 is Sean. Well, the second send off of Sean. Well, remember, Sean left twice. Sean was the brooding bad boy who Emma fell in love with. Unfortunately, in season 1, Sean pushes Emma in an argument, with Jimmy, and then basically Emma stays away from him until season 2, when Spike and Snake are about to get married. Sean comes to the wedding, even though Emma's upset by it. Emma groans that she caused a lot of bad things, but Sean says, don't worry about it. And they get back together until Jay and his stupid candy bandits persuade Sean to do a life of crime and, get away from Emma, who has to deal with a sick father, Snake with leukemia, and a new baby brother. So anyway, Sean gets away from his thuggish life while being with Ellie. And then, of course, Sean is there with Toby and Emma when Rick, after shooting Jimmy, tries conveniently bumps into those three and decides to off Emma. But Sean tries to calm Rick down, doesn't, and then wrestles the gun with Rick and shoots him. Sean has residue on his shoulders and all that. And then in the next episode, Back in Black, he's trying to deal with the thing, especially with his parents giving an interview, and he said that his parents abandoned him. But they sent him to Toronto with Tracker, Sean's brother, because they were worried that Sean would end up in jail. So that's what happens. And Sean, goes to what's not going to do with his PTSD and all that. Emma source forlorn. And then season 6, he pops back in the picture and kind of ruins Pema, the Peter and Emma relationship. I think that was on purpose because people hated that relationship so badly. Emma then finds Sean attractive, and then Sean decides to lower his standards for Emma. And then after he got expelled, wrongfully so, because of the fake drugs Peter played in Shawnee's locker, he decides to go to the military to better himself. Emma, of course, is upset tries to fake a pregnancy, but doesn't go through with it. And basically, yeah, Sean leaves and all that. And we never get to know about Sean after that season 6. Actually, no, season 7, he pops back for a one off episode and then he leaves. That's just sad. Everyone wanted Emma and Sean more so than Emma and Spinner. That's a fact. Number 13 is Lucas. Now, people are like saying, Lucas, why would he have a bad send off? When I looked at the polls, I'm like, no one voted for this guy? Well, I put him at number 13 because of the fact that, Lucas deserved better. Because, he was always seen as Mia's baby daddy who just wasn't interested in Isabella and all that, and basically pawned her off on Mia's mom and all that. And it's like he didn't want to take care of her. Well, no, like Lucas's mom took care of Mia, Isabella too, but Lucas just didn't seem interested. That changes in Jane says, the two-parter that Jane finally realizes that her birth father molested her and all that. And when she tells Lucas the story, Lucas looks at the fact that his dad is getting closer to Isabella and realizes that if he doesn't do anything about it, she's going to be his next victim. And basically tells his dad, stay out of our lives forever. And then in family therapy, he says that he should have done better and he's apologetic. But Jane says, we were just kids and you're here now. So she gives him a bit of a pass. The worst part is that episode was the last time we saw Lucas. No mentions, no episodes he was in, and no more mentions. Like, it would have been nice to see if Lucas actually changed his act, clean up his act for Isabella's sake, and became a better father and become a better person. It would have been nice. Jane could have mentioned him, but she didn't. Like, what the fuck? All right, so now we got to go to the polls for the next stuff. So you'll see the stuff from 6 to 12. 7 to 12, excuse me. So anyway, here's the numbers. Number 12 on the list is Claude from Degrassi High, Claude Tanner. So what happens is that Claude is this tortured soul who has problems with his parents. Basically, both his parents don't want him, which is sucky. But, he wants to be with Caitlin and cares about the environment. But Claude leaves Caitlin high and dry during a protest for nuclear bombs and all that. And Caitlin has to serve community service, and Claude basically can't go to the courtroom because he would be found guilty and, he would be in trouble. And it also doesn't help that Caitlin was wearing, like, clothes that made her, like, catch that fence. So anyway, Claude decides after he can't have Caitlin to, like, kill himself. And of course, I guess first run you didn't really hear the gunshot go off, but thanks to technology with sound editing and all that, by the 2010s and all that, with the repeats, you could hear the gunshot. And then Snake just had to find Claude in the bathroom and have PTSD. And they played Snake's PTSD quite well during showtime. There's a bit of people saying, well, what Claude did was selfish and all that, just to make the school feel bad for himself, which is true. Joanne tries to defend Claude's stuff and says she should have helped him, but Radish says there's not much more you could have done. All of us feel overwhelmed, but, once we off ourselves, there's no going back. So, of course, Claude gets into Caitlin's head with the flowers and the dreams and all that. Joey snaps Caitlin out of the funk saying, that's what he wants you to think. It's cautionary tale. Number 11 on the list is Claire because of her drama. Well, mostly because we didn't find out what Claire's post-high school dreams were and all that. What college and all that. Claire was this girl that she was basically given all the plot lines possible. Cancer, having lost Casey to Jenna, trying to reform Casey and all that. Her stuff with Eli, Fitz, her parents separating, and Claire joining a weak cult because she thinks that her parents just don't give a crap about her. She was so drama, it hurt. But the fact of the matter for Claire, in a sense, was that she was a decent character, but they just threw these plot lines. They even had her have a miscarriage, which was unusual for Degrassi. Claire does do the right thing by smashing Pill's cameras when she hears about how much she's spying on them with audio, which is like pathetic. And she doesn't have any future plans. She decides to take a gap year, maybe go back with Eli, maybe not. I don't know. She deserved better. All right, so now we got to go with the fingers for number 10. Number 10 on the list is Fola. Now you'll be thinking, who the hell is Fola? Well, she was in Degrassi Junior High. She was in the first episode with Stephanie K and all that. She was Stephanie K's right hand woman, if you will, because Stephanie was trying to do her stuff to be class president. Now, Stephanie will be in the list from 1 to 6, just to let you know, because, I already did my 2 Degrassi characters for 7 to 12. Degrassi High characters. So, yeah, so Fola was this great girl, but she had problems because her dad did not want her to go to a dance. Even though Fola has to, in a sense, because was part of the whole thing for Degrassi adopting a kid and all that in Africa. Her father just doesn't understand. Fola tried to get out of it and then says that I wasn't really dancing. I had to be there for the event. But her dad says, well, you lied about it. Fair. Unfortunately, Lucy's influences, because Fola got in trouble for shoplifting, even though she was an accomplice to Lucy. I think Fola's parents just basically moved away. And Stephanie actually said that she misses Fola in season 2 of Junior High, and she decides to try to fix it. Number 9 on the list is Ellie, who was called kind of the ultimate pick-me girl, as you will. Ellie wanted to have a decent relationship. She was a goth girl and all that, very mysterious. She goes out with Marco, but Marco's using her as to block the fact that he's gay. So Ellie decides once and for all to tell Marco, I'm not going to be your beard. You're going to have to come out. And Marco does, to mixed results. But Ellie finds love with Sean because they're both tortured souls. They both have weird backgrounds and all that. And of course, Ellie starts taking her out, hurting herself with a compass. I would say protractor, but protractors don't have the sharp things. That's a compass. And starts cutting herself. Fortunately, Paige makes her stop doing that. And she goes to therapy because, her dad's now in Afghanistan as a colonel. And her mother's a drunk. Ellie just was in a bad situation. Ellie and Sean stayed together until Sean left for Wasaga for his PTSD in season 4. Ellie was all by herself in the apartment and all that, and finally moves back with her mom because her mom shows improvement. Ellie thinks about Jimmy. Ellie thinks about Craig and all that. Unfortunately, though, it doesn't work out for her. She loses Jesse to Caitlin. Ellie was basically there. And then Ellie was so distraught with Craig having a girlfriend in season 8 in Degrassi Girls Hollywood, in the subplot, that she actually walks into the Pacific Ocean. But thankfully, Marco and Craig stop her from doing anything stupid. And Ellie has to deal with her PTSD because her father has his PTSD. Number 8 on the list was JT. The saddest because, him dying the way he died and all that. So what happened with JT? Well, he was basically this goofy character, kind of comic relief with all that for the first few seasons. And then it was like, when he was going to mature. By season 3, he left Toby high and dry, and Toby will be part of this list coming up. So JT, wants to be with Manny and thinks he's short in the wiener department and all that. Gets a penis pump and then, gets caught with it. JT, of course, with his carelessness towards Toby, cost Toby dearly in the sense JT gets chewed out by Manny in Back in Black for abandoning Toby. And JT realizes that he needs to be there for Toby. And then that starts up that friendship once again. But JT has his own problems because Liberty's now pregnant and all that. JT does whatever he could to deal with the kid and all that. Unfortunately, he gets told by Jay, who freaking has to be the devil on everyone's shoulder, that he needs to sell drugs because he can help with the apartment and all that. So JT does whatever he can. Unfortunately, he gets in trouble for the drugs and all that, and then decides to take something to get away from the pain because, he's trying to abduct the drug dealer, trying to get out of the mess. Liberty is not much help to him, and he might go to prison. So basically, he luckily survives thanks to Jay, of all freaking people, And then Liberty decides to get the child adoption, saying we both made mistakes. It seems that Liberty was just basically pinning things on JT. I can see why people hate on her. Anyway, JT tries to prove to Liberty that he was worth being a good father because JT's father left him, but JT wasn't going to continue the cycle. So he decides to go out with Mia and dotes on Izzy at 2 years old, and Liberty's a bit jealous and all that. Liberty has a right to be jealous, but Liberty kind of pushed JT away. It's all her fucking fault. Sorry, but I have to say it. So then what ends up happening is that JT and Mia thing is bad because Lakehurst with Roderick, as they call him, from Diary of a Wimpy Kid, the Roderick lookalike, basically decides to push JT into a Degrassi Lakehurst feud, which spills out at a party at Emma's house. And JT searches for Liberty, but bumps into Drake Lampley and Johnny DeMarco peeing on his car. He makes some kind of sarcastic remark. Drake goes rogue and stabs JT, whereas Johnny DeMarco is just shocked and all that. JT slowly dies. Liberty tries to get help, but fails miserably, and everyone's upset over JT dying. Of course, everyone asks the question, what happened to Drake Lampley? Well, he's in jail. And Johnny DeMarco, why is he not in jail or all that for that thing? Well, I think Johnny DeMarco made some kind of plea deal and basically told on Drake and told on everyone else. And like Nick, how come he didn't get consequences? But I think he did. In my head canon, Nick did. That basically he was charged with conspiracy, not to kill JT, but to hurt him, and he was off the program. Yeah, JT deserved better. And for years, we were led to believe that Ryan Cooley, the guy who played JT, actually wanted to leave in gory fashion because he was going to college, but they were going to bump him off anyhow. Weird. And winning the 7-12 poll was Toby, speaking of, with JT. Toby was just made into a side character. I was actually shocked Toby didn't win one of those 2 spots to be 1-6 because I would have loved to see that. But the fact of the matter is that Toby was the ultimate side character that got shoved to the past. Toby had some great storylines, like his relationship with Ashley, being blended family with his mom and his dad and Ashley's mom and all that. They were the breakout stars of season 1 until they decided to give Ashley and Toby the rub, the bad rub in season 2. Toby's wrestling storyline with him trying to impress Kendra in the school and all that was pretty cool and all that, but they never referenced it again. Toby was having things with Kendra. Kendra disappeared off screen, being black-holed, but we soon learned that Katie Lai, the girl who played Kendra, was actually off the show because she was being bullied by most of the Degrassi cast and basically made an outcast, if you will. So Toby just had nobody around. It was easy pickings for Rick, being a friend in season 4 because Toby got abandoned by JT, as Manny said. And, they have that kissing bet. It's kind of cool. Toby wins it by acclamation, but he pays Darcy to kiss Rick and starts trouble with Spinner and Jay. So basically, Toby doesn't know what to feel about after the shooting and all that because he saw what happened. His supposed friend was a creep and all that. So he didn't know what to do, how to think about it. But JT helped him out. Toby was trying to help JT on season 5, but JT had none of it. Well, JT asked Toby for money. Toby's like, I can't do that. And then that's why you're unlikable. JT was being petty towards Toby. Toby was such a side character. He was a partial character in the whole Lakehurst thing in season 6. He's the one who told JT to go after Liberty, not knowing that JT was going to die, of course. But Toby had to have guilt, and he wanted to give it together with Liberty because of the guilt. Toby, unfortunately, after that storyline was basically pushed off to the side, he did have a moment when he was upset for Lakehurst moving into Degrassi, but then he sizes up fine. What's worse is that season 7, he's not even in the opening credits. They pushed Toby aside. They kept him till season 7, and they push him out the opening credits. Pathetic. All right, so here's what happens from 1-6 and all that. 53 people voted. 26 of them, almost 50%, voted for number 1, just to let you know. All right, so first off, well, is there a tie? Oh yeah, there is a tie. There's a tie for fifth with 2 votes. Um, I'm gonna go with okay. So number 6 is Stephanie K. All the way with Stephanie K. from Degrassi Junior High, the first main female protagonist of Degrassi. Not Spike, but it was Stephanie K. because she was in the first episode called "Kiss Me, Steph," in which she trades kisses for votes to be class president, gets the job, but doesn't realize how much she needs to be with the PTA and all that. She thought it was just some kind of ceremonial thing. Stephanie was just a spoiled, rotten kid who did not want to recognize her younger brother Arthur and all that. So, yeah, that was pathetic. But yeah, Stephanie was a female protagonist. She gets drunk before the thing with the UNICEF thing that Vola went to, and unfortunately doesn't do well. She was just trying to be popular and all that. By season 2, she realizes after she gets impeached as class president, she needs to do better. She unfortunately almost gets taken advantage of by a soap opera star. And season 3, she's off the show, off to a private school because Arthur's family won the lottery. Of course, Arthur's family is split up, like the parents are divorced, Arthur and Steps. But in truth, Stephanie K's actress, I can't remember her last name. I know Nicole something, Shortser or something, left to do Between the Ropes. It's the Lyle Sato sitcom in which he's a vice principal that's moonlighting as a wrestler and has to keep it secret. And that was when the AWA, the Ric Flair Vader territory, before they were WCW, came to play. So yeah, number 5 is Cam. Reason why I put Cam in number 5, you know why. Because you know how he died. Cam was there for 1 season and 1 season only, and basically was just there to talk about things. The fact of the matter is that Cameron was a good type of person and all that. And Maya fell in love with Cam, thinking that she could be with him. Cam had problems. He's from Kapuskasing, which is 10 hours away from Toronto. He's playing on the Ice Hounds. And of course, everyone's confused saying Degrassi had a hockey team, the Ice Hounds. Actually, no, it wasn't a Degrassi team. It was actually a junior league team. In Canada, you have like 3 leagues and with teams coast to coast. Like, of course, I live in Kitchener, Ontario, so the team is the Kitchener Rangers, a junior team. You try your best, and then NHL teams basically take a look at you and draft you and all that. Cameron Reed is the highest rated Kitchener Ranger prospect. He might get in the top 20. I hope the Rangers, New York gets him and all that. So anyway, yeah, Cam was having a hard time with this. He was trying to be a prodigy and all that, but his hockey team basically made fun of his puppy love for Maya. Sig is jealous of Maya and Cam and gets Cam so wound up. Cam gets suspended, and then Sig said he's going to go with Maya. Maya wants to meet Cam in front of the school, but Sig gets under Cam's skin, and then Cam decides to off himself in the JT York greenhouse. We don't know what happened, and that was a Degrassi thing on purpose. My theory is that he probably drank some chemicals and then, under the influence of chemicals, slashed himself. A lot of people said, "Oh, he slashed himself," but maybe the garden chemicals was part of it. Maybe it was part of it because I know about garden chemicals being part of the soil compound at work for 3+ years. So yeah, so Cam died and everyone felt bad. Dallas almost jumped off the roof and all that. Maya just had the problems dealing with Cam's death. Just when she was getting over Cam's death, whammo, next class, it brings it back to her. Anyway, number 4, there is a tie for third again, but I am going to go with number 4, Darcy, on this one. Darcy and, well, third and fourth place got 5 votes each, but Darcy, I'm putting at number 4. Darcy was this goody goody Christian character and all that, who gets taken advantage of by Peter. Peter basically plays with Darcy's emotions in season 6, wants a relationship with her after Emma dumps him off. And, Peter cries crocodile tears with Darcy and all that. Has to. And then sells provocative pictures of Darcy to this guy named Adams, who Peter thinks he doesn't know, but he does know, which is plain dumb. I would have basically just gotten Peter in trouble with that. And, Darcy not see Peter. But, Darcy is far gone and Peter gets into her head again and again and again. Darcy unfortunately gets raped by a guy in season 7's premiere and all that. She now has to deal with the shame of having sex before marriage, even though it wasn't of her own doing. And she'll never get to know her rapist. She goes into a self-loathing period, gets Snake canned from Degrassi for a while. She does come out saying that Snake was not inappropriate with her, but it's too little too late. She almost jumps off the roof before Manny talks to Darcy, and Darcy basically has to tell everyone things. And Darcy finally gets through in Brad camp with her rapist. Worst of all, Darcy and Peter were a decent couple, but by season 8, Darcy was gone. Shanae Grimes was going to the 90210 reboot. They needed to take her out. So they put Darcy, shipped off to Kenya. I still say that Darcy shipped off to Kenya was not really her decision. It was her parents' decision to just basically get rid of her, just their wild daughter, and just focus on Claire. Anyway, number 3, also with 5 votes, was Wheels from Degrassi Junior High / High. I had to put Wheels in number 3 because this guy was great. A decent side character to Snake and Joey. They were the Sit Remedy and all that. And then Wheels basically fell off the cliff, if you will. In season 3 of Junior High, they had his parents, found out that his adoptive parents died in a car crash. Wheels is now taken care of by his grandmother and all that. Wheels takes advantage of his grandma and grandpa's trust and all that, gets himself kicked out, and almost gets taken advantage of by some guy after Wheels tries to find his father. He does find his father, but his father tells his grandmother all that. Wheels then turns into a guy who drinks all the time, even though that he shouldn't, with the fact that he did say that he wouldn't drink because of how a drunk driver killed his adoptive parents. But unfortunately, he was lying to himself. And by School's Out, the Degrassi High movie, if you will, he was drinking and all that. He was going to go to Calgary with his girlfriend and, fix up cars and all that. But then he just had to, under the influence, take Lucy to get some chips and crash into her car. And Wheels tries to pass off blame on Lucy, saying that she wanted the chips. But Wheels could have easily said, no, I don't think I should drive. Of course, Wheels was trying to pass off blame and all that, but Snake did not want anything to do with Wheels until season 3 when Snake had the leukemia thing. And Wheels just basically tells him that, I killed a kid. I served lots of time in jail. I wanted to die, but you shouldn't. And basically the Sit remedy is revealed. Of course, Neil Hope is dead in real life. Number 2 with 13 votes is Alex. And a lot of people did not like that send-off of Alex. Hate the player. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Deanna Casolis? Casolis did a great job playing the character. But anyway, Alex was a pretty decent person. She was the female muscle in Jay's Candy Bandits. She was named student council vice president by Marco in season 4, even though Alex wanted to run for president and out Marco as being gay. But she, in the end, decides to pass on that notion. Alex is the last main female bully of Rick in the situation. She hangs out with Jay and Spinner, and those 3 are basically the people who want to destroy Rick once and for all. Jimmy, of course, switches sides, which does not sit well with Jay and Spinner fighting on that. But Alex, sets herself up, gets the paint and feathers from Spinner and Jay, and dumps them on Rick. And basically, everything goes well. Rick is humiliated and maybe gone from Degrassi, but, he had a gun and all that. Alex figures she should not have gotten involved with the paint and feathers after hearing what happened with the shooting and Rick being involved. Alex, of course, was the one who said that Rick spray painted everyone's vehicles, and that's when they said, we have to get him. It's the final straw. Alex was willing to talk in Back in Black. It's a blink and you miss it moment. Alex says she wants to talk about it, but Jay says, be careful who you talk to. Basically, she's told by Jay to keep a lid on things. And fortunately for Alex, Jay and Spinner telling themselves, but not her. Because, Spinner didn't want Alex to get in trouble because Alex had too much going for her. And Jay didn't want to dump Alex off because, he had a hard on for her. Alex could have easily, after getting gonorrhea from Jay, turned things around and just basically out Jay for the paint and feathers. That would have been sweet revenge. Unfortunately, Alex gets into the friend group and all that and doesn't tell anyone. She doesn't really get called out on her behavior in season 4, and it was stupid. She gets into this relationship with Paige. Palex was supposed to be cool and all that, but Paige basically stepped on Alex like a stepping stool and took advantage of Alex's weak home life and all that. Alex, of course, gets pissed off when her mom uses the money that Alex uses for stripping to try to save the house, but to bail her boyfriend out of jail. So Alex decides to move in with Paige. Of course, Alex has issues and all that. She tries to fix her life, but just can't in the end. And she's sent to Ajax. And finally, number 1, who won, is my homegirl, Terry McGregor, played by Christina Schmidt, alumnus of Waterloo Oxford District Secondary School, where this guy went. So anyway, Terry is number 1. She had to be number 1. I think I would vote for number 1 for Terry. But the fact of the matter is that Terry, her send-off was terrible. I mean, dude, the season 4 plot line involving Rick, no mention of Terry at all. Like, justice for Terry, yes, but like we didn't see her or hear about what she would have thought about the whole situation. That would have been creepy. But anyhow, Terry deserved better. She was basically this plus-size girl who was kind of self-conscious and all that. And then Rick pops up in the picture. Unfortunately, Rick is more abusive than you think, that he's not just physically abusive, but he's psychologically abusive of her. Terry does break off with him, and then during trusting exercise, she finds love with him again, and then brings Rick on the road trip with Hazel, Jimmy, Spinner, and Paige. Paige upsets Rick one too many times, and Rick runs off to the woods. Terry tries to help him out, but he strikes her, pushes her head on a rock. She's unconscious. She's okay and all that. But basically, yeah, things were there. And we saw Terry a few times in the end of season 3, but that was it. Season 4, she was gone. And of course, the whole Terry situation. I mean, justice for Terry is one thing, yeah, but, it was a powder cake ready to explode. And, Terry was mentioned in that deleted scene, which Raj talks to Marco and Alex. But, that's just plain dumb. How my homegirl got knocked off like that. Terry deserved better. And, it was a good thing with the time signs down the Rick situation. But what would have happened if Terry actually had an input in this thing? What if Christina Schmidt had an input into what happened in season 4? Things would change. So, anyway, thanks for watching my yammering for 43 minutes on bad departures and all that. I thought it would be 30 minutes, but I made it 43. Anyway, I'm Jeff. I'm going to do